So, welcome everyone. Welcome to another success series. Today we have the legend, Mark Johnson. He's been an industry veteran. He's been in a lot of things. I've always admired his work and the success he's had with his company, with different spheres. He's part of the Tom Ferry Coaching Group. He's been a legend in just teaching and advocating for new agents, getting them to success and to a successful place. And today we're so lucky to have him. So welcome, Mark. And thank you for joining this webinar today.
Well, thank you, Sam. And, more than new agents, team leaders, broker managers, owners, so many of these skills are universal.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you start? What got you here?
Yeah, I have a varied background. I grew up in Colorado Springs, got my bachelor's degree, did the Army thing. I went through the ROTC program, got my commission, served in the Army, and did that, and then went and did some big corporate stuff at the Fortune 500 level, did that, and, loved that, but it ended up where I had the opportunity to run my own show in real estate sales, and really, really enjoyed that, excelled, and was approached to lead an office and do those kind of things. And
when was this? Like, give us a timeline. Like, what year was this? How did you get into real estate? And what was the key thing that?
Well, yeah. So the key thing was that when I was in corporate America, the particular company got bought out, and that they offered everyone, hey, a package or move somewhere, and wherever the move was at the time just didn't work for me and my family. So I chose to get the real estate license and the broker's license and go forward and never looking back. And spent some time with my good friend Tom Ferry over in his organization, and then the last 5 years here at JPAR Real Estate. So it's been a great journey, and I absolutely love what we do and the people who do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So before we dive deep into different questions, I would love to ask you one question, and that is, what did the Army teach you about discipline, about being motivated to get things done? And because I see a lot of Army veterans, and they do a great job when they come to different industries. Like, what is the one thing that you learned from that experience? Or
well, there's a lot of things you learn, but probably the biggest thing you learn is you do things consistently, even though you don't feel like it.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? You may not feel like getting up and training today, but you're going to train every day, because when you're trained, you're ready. And so probably the biggest thing is the difference between commitment and being interested. When you're interested, you do it when you feel like it. When you're committed, you do whatever it takes to accomplish the mission. And that's so true in anything. I was thinking, I was writing a blog, and I write a blog frequently. And I was thinking, what's the ultimate secret? What's the ultimate secret? And I think the words are, do it and tell. I mean, Sam, think about this. If you want to be a champion in anything, it relates to how much time you put in, right?
Yeah.
So some of us learn fast, some of us learn slow, and most of us are somewhere in between. So when you and I are committed to a cause, the effort and the result, you do it until, and fill in the blank. You do it until. You do it until you gain mastery. You do it until you have confidence. You do it until you are the best. So until is the magic word for your audience today, and fill in the blank. You do it until blank. The common denominator is, I did it until I got it. I did it until I got it. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. And so hopefully some of your listeners today, that might resonate with them, is you do it until you get it. Some of you are going to get it faster than others. But if you're committed to it, you do it until you get it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So let's say I'm a new agent. So today we're going to cover mostly new agents, mostly starting now, and they're all starting in this shifting market, right? So there's all this news that the market is changing, we're heading for a crash, all those things that a lot of them do not even make sense, right? But you have to work with these buyers that are thinking the market is falling apart, that are not trusting you to kind of move the needle, and they're always questioning everything about the market. So what is your essentially number one advice for these agents that are entering the market? And it's a tough market for them. It's going to be tougher, especially since there's going to be less motivated people. And we're going to get into that. Like, you got to have more leads, sure, and you got to work with more people in a market where there's less motivation. But so let's say I'm a new agent. Sam is this new agent that's coming to you. What is the one thing you would tell me?
You have to understand the local dynamics in your zip code, in your MLS area, in the area, the geography that you work. I think you said something earlier that I don't know that I agree with, that there's less motivated people. There's not, there's more. There's 71 million millennials, of which 2/3 of them have stated they intend to buy a home in the next 2 to 3 years. It's the largest population of home buyers in the country, followed immediately by the baby boomers, who's the next largest. There's nearly 69 to 70 million of those, and they're working longer. Sooner or later, they're going to downsize, outsize, right size. And so there's plenty of business. And I'm going to show you some data here shortly that would indicate that there's still not enough inventory, and we're in most areas, we're still in a strong seller's market.
That's great. So let's say someone comes to me and says, well, the market is going down, I'm not buying. What would be a typical response? The first one is, well, there's not enough inventory. You're not at historic levels yet. The second one is, well, you got to look at this in perspective and so on. What is the third response? What is the fourth response? What would you tell a buyer that is questioning the whole market now and the whole real estate market?
Well, not all buyers are created equal. So first you have to understand what's their objective and what's their time frame.
That's great.
Right. If I'm a buyer and I have a 5-year horizon, that's different than someone who's going to be in the community maybe for the next 2 years, right? Military families, let's say, that are going to be there 24 months and they're moving on, that's a whole different scenario than someone who's going to be in the area for 5 years or more. So first you have to start with an assessment of what's the buyer's needs, wants, and desires, and what are their dreams. Then you can start working around, what options make the most sense.
That does make sense. So what are the biggest assets? So I'm starting as a new agent. What are the biggest assets that I have? So I know the key thing is probably my sphere of influence, the people that I know and they would trust me. What are the next things? And let's talk about that sphere of influence as well.
Well, so we know that real estate is a business that is built on relationships. It's virtually impossible to market yourself into the business because people are going to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And look, there's probably one realtor or agent for every 60 or 70 households in America. So, in the neighborhood I'm sitting in right now, there's probably, 10 or 12 real estate professionals. So everybody knows one, right? So what's going to appeal them to you? Well, first, it's going to be that they have some familiarity with you, right? So have you done the 7 levels of communication?
No, let's talk about it. Let's talk about those 7 levels.
Well, so there's passive and active communication, right?
Okay.
So passive might be, posting something, sending something out. That might get you some, information, right, sharing. But where you start to move into the more productive is when the middle of the road is like a handwritten note. That starts to move into the influence stage, right? A conversation like we're having. This is where we build relationship, community, and connection. So from the handwritten note to the phone call to the coffee conversation, that's where this is going to happen. And, that sounds like, well, Mark, that sounds like, that's not very high tech. Well, you use high tech ways to schedule and book and collect those. But at the end of the day, if you don't have enough relationships, if you don't have enough relationships, you're not going to have the referral base to sustain your business.
All right, so we're going to cover a few things. So let's go from the very top, where you're generating leads and the 4 ways that you can generate leads. And then let's cover the next part, that is the system or a CRM or something that you would use to nurture these. And then let's cover the last part where you just talked about, where you have to build that connection, you have to show up, you have to do the calls and so on. So from the very top, what are the
from the very top, and we haven't covered it, from the research and studies we've done, most agents don't have enough sources of leads, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going fishing and you throw one fishing pole in the water, you have one. What if you put 2 in? What if you put 3 in? What if you put 4 in? If you have 4 in versus 1, are you likely to catch more fish? Right? So the concept is do you have at least 4 different sources of leads that you're working, and each source works differently in different markets. But one obviously is working the people, whatever you want to call it, sphere of influence, past clients from any business. Virtually everyone came from some other type of business, so they know somebody, right? And that's one source. Then another source is what you all really help with, is online exposure and online leads. There's a lot of different ways to generate that, but that's a source. Another source could be, open houses, and that could be virtually done open houses or physical. And then finally, some type of focus area where you're getting to know either a demographic or a geographic type exposure. Maybe if you came from the first responder community, you're doing events and connections with first responders, for example. So there's 4 ways. So the first thing is, how many lead sources are you planning to have, and how are you going to execute them?
So let's get into each one of these and get in there and try and go there. So the first one is your online leads. And I see this with realtors all the time. They spend thousands of dollars on a website, but then they send no traffic on it. Well, I'm like, why did you spend this money, right? You spent 10 grand on this beautiful website, but it has no traffic. So what's your number one advice on a website to spend on something that is going to work and on bringing traffic there?
Well, I think you have to realize today, for most of us, a website is really a business card, right? You have to have one. It's a basic requirement, but it really is a business card. For the vast majority of us that don't have digital marketing expertise or the budget to do so, it is a business card, right? Now, there's lots of ways to generate online leads, but I guess before we get into all of this, no matter what your marketing is, I would encourage your listeners to think about their approach to marketing. Real estate sales, direct sales, is really not about building a brand. It's a direct response game. What do I mean direct response? That means when you put something out, you want to get a phone call or a lead or something to follow up on, or someone books an appointment, right? The ultimate objective of any of the sources of leads you do is to get an appointment to talk to someone about buying, selling, or investing in real estate. So back to your question, first, everything's got to be designed and should be made easy to make an appointment with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great advice. So the ending point is that meeting, is that kitchen table that you're going to go to and you're going to talk to people, and it's that coffee shop, right?
Or the coffee table. So my first question to everyone is, how easy is it to book an appointment with you. Like you and I booked this through Calendly. It's for you and I, it's so easy to book into our calendar. You can go to our calendar link. You can see all my open appointments. It's super easy. So my first challenge to everyone is make it a no-brainer if people want to connect with you. Make it easy.
Make it easy. That's great. That's great advice. So now let's talk about open houses. So I know you're an advocate for passive and active open houses, or what's the key difference?
Well, so passive open houses, maybe you do those to appease a seller, or you got to do something, but you just happen to show up on a Saturday, stick a sign in the yard, and hope someone shows up. That's not a real productive way to spend your time. An active open house is one that you're going to spend the week prior planning out. You're going to treat it like you would a party. Sam, if you were planning a birthday party, let's say for me, what would you do? Would you send out invitations?
Yeah. Would you call your friends?
Would you call some friends and say, hey, you're going to come over?
Yeah.
Would you have some maybe light snacks or treats or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why would you do an open house any different? If you're going to spend 2, 3, or 4 hours of your time, and I'd encourage everyone to calculate the value of your time. I'm going to put out there that each and every one of us listening in is worth at least $100 an hour. So if you're going to spend 3 or 4 hours doing an open house, let's say that's $400 of your time. Are you going to do it by chance, or are you going to treat it like a party? You're going to invite a circle of homeowners around the property, not because they care to come. Everyone's curious about the house, but it also lets them know that you're different. Gosh, not too many agents invite us to their open house or give us this little invitation, or however you choose to do it. Have some snacks for them or whatever, but invite the neighbors and then make some phone calls. Treat it like I call it plan the party. It's like you're planning a little mini get together. And when you treat it that way, you get a lot of residual effect. Now, the other thing everyone ought to be considering is every open house you do should be virtually boosted.
Okay.
You can do a little walkthrough. Hey, it's Mark. I'm here in front of 123 Main Street, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, walk around, do a quick, 1-minute walkthrough, boost that up to your business page. I'm sure you guys can help them with that, and get that out there in the community. I would boost it for a week. Now you have a virtual open house that's working for you 24/7 for 7 days after your physical event.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And some tips about that boosting. It's always better to boost that open house to the neighboring community, to that postcode, rather than just click that boost button on your Instagram or Facebook. Because what that does is it essentially targets your own audience. And the chances are your cousin sitting across the country, they would target them and their friends. It's good to have that, but you don't want that boosted, and you don't want to spend your money targeting LA buyers when you're sitting.
No,
right?
You want to boost it to the local community. And then, Sam, some people say, well, Mark, I don't have an open house. I don't have a listing. Well, the other one point you asked me earlier, what's the second thing everyone needs, is they need to be resourceful. And so get resourceful. Go to a builder's model and say, hey, I know you got a model home here. You got 3 models. Over the next 3 weeks, I just want to do a little feature on my social page of model A, B, and C, and they'll all let you do that. And
those are really powerful things. Like just walk into pre-construction, walk into pre-sales. It's a really powerful thing. You're nearly going to hit market.
And do the same thing. You could call that a virtual open house. So let's say you don't have a physical open house you can do this weekend. We'll do a virtual one with a builder's model.
And I think with the inventory stacking up a little bit, there will be a lot of agents that would need help with that open house. So just call into your office. There will be a ton of agents that need help with the open houses. They will be happy to take you in. They might even pay you a small fee to show up.
Particularly now that the inventory is increasing. And I've got some numbers I can show you in one of the communities, but yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's dive deep into that actually. So I'm a new agent. I'm getting a lot of things from my buyers. I'm sitting in San Diego and people are telling me, wow, the market is crashing. It's not working. I'm just waiting it out. I'm waiting to see what happens. So how would you basically answer that? How would you answer that with data? How would you actually give me some feedback or some data that I can take in?
Yeah. So first, they already have or should have this Altos research. They just go to altosresearch.com and Google it. So this happens to be, you mentioned San Diego, so I pulled up San Diego. Great market, has a median list price of 1.2 million. That makes your head spin right there. But if you're not into data, you can see on the left here this little market action index. It looks like a gas meter. You can see last month was in red and it's pointing to about 80. And this month it's backed off a little to 70. So yeah, we've backed off the pedal a little bit, but guess what? It's still a strong seller's market. And if you look below at the inventory, just in July of 2019, we had about 1,121 listings. Today, we have about 800. So we're still short of inventory, even though you see this big spike here, right? The big spike is actually a good thing. Now, when you said buyers, it depends on which buyers. What I love about the Altos is you see at the bottom of the report here, it quartiles the buyers into entry level, next, and the top level. And so a buyer that's in the entry level, which in San Diego is at that 750,000, they're going to have different needs, wants, and issues than the high-end buyer, right? What's happening today is it's really squeezing kind of that entry-level first-time home buyer who's got to save maybe a little bit longer. But there's 60 million millennials that have cash, and they're moving around primarily paying cash. So they don't care about mortgage rates at the moment. They care more about the value. So it depends on who you're talking to. You've got to pick your market, pick your target, and it's not a one size fits all category. The one thing, Sam, I like about Altos is you can see the trends here. If you're into the data, on the right, you can see the trends. If you're not into data, you just want a visual, the gas meter works. But if you're into the data, you can see here the trend of price decreases. Nearly 40% of all listed homes have dropped their price at least once in the last 7 days. That's approaching normal levels. What's not approaching is the average to median days on market. You can see here it's going up. The trend is up. But most of your agents, if they're new, the experienced agents know this, that the market we've had the last 2 years is not normal. Putting a house on the market and having 50 offers in 14 hours is not normal. Normally, most economists, they used to use a benchmark of 6 months. 6 months being a balanced market. So if this said 180 days right here, people would be like, the world has ended. This number here, primarily probably to be healthy, needs to be in the 120-day mark.
I think you're nailing it in the head. You have to know your market. So if you're using roomvu, there will be a video about your market in your account. So you can just go in, watch the video and learn, like all the stats are usually posted there. And the idea is that you have that county level data that tells you what's happening with the market. But it's not about just posting.
And we can get this down to a zip code, right? Do you want to do a zip code? Give me a zip code.
Let's do anywhere in Texas, like anything that comes to your mind.
75034. Let's do Frisco, right? Okay, so we'll come to Frisco. Okay, now we're at the zip code level, right? So here we have the same. You can see the same trend, right? But the inventory gap is even bigger. Here, Right now, there's 88 homes in the zip code. Normally, there's 300. You can see the quartiles, right? And you can see the median days on market and average days. Same effect here, though, right? A little bit coming off the gas, but still a strong seller's market.
So I think the key is to just learn your market, whatever it's happening there. You gotta know your data. You gotta know exactly what's happening there. So it's not just about posting it, but reading it through, absorbing it, analyzing it, and understanding every little detail, right? Like you have this active inventory, sold inventory, what's happening in them. And I think that's the key that a lot of people miss there. And I think that's the bottom line.
You've got Altos Research, and then you have your local MLS data. Between those, you have all the powerful data. And contrary to what the news says, you know, the news is going to say something like this. They're going to take this 80, where we're at 80, and now it's at 67. They're going to take that decline and say the market has slowed. That's going to be the headline, right? Well, yeah, it did slow, but what they didn't tell you is that we're still going to get a speeding ticket if we get caught on the highway, right? Each news outlet, spins the news the way they, want to drive subscriptions or get ad revenue or get eyeball
clickbaits, right? So they're all pushing for clicks, and I think that's the key. So now let's talk about this. So you've used different sources. It could be your social media, it could be ads, it could be a website, it could be whatever. And now you have these leads. So what is your typical understanding of an online lead? How would you classify these leads that came in?
Well, first, we know that most online leads, 75% of them aren't going to buy immediately. Studies we've done show that 25% will buy in the first 90 days. So 25% of the online leads are what I call a more hot commodity, right? 75% of them are 6 months to 36 months away. And so if you don't have a way to nurture them and service them, you're going to lose the opportunity. Maybe that's Buffini Referral Maker. Maybe that's KV Core. Maybe that's Top Producer. I don't know what you have. Maybe it's your iPhone and they just rotate and you put reminders, but you have to have some kind of a system.
I think the old saying is, if you don't have a system, you are the system, right? So, I think this is the key thing, like having that system to follow up consistently, to send constant reminders that you exist, that you're out there, you're adding value. I think that's something that a lot of agents miss. So once you have that system, again, I think something that we need to do is basically help these guys book that meeting, right? I think you're nailing it in the head that they have to be able to book that meeting with you. They should go there. So
well, they have to also be able to ask for it. They have to be able to. One of the things we've seen in our studies is you have to get comfortable asking, can we have coffee? Have you had any thoughts of selling? What would make you a buyer? How long do you plan to stay in the home? You have to ask and be comfortable asking some probing questions, and you can't be a wallflower. If you're a wallflower, you're going to starve. And so you have to get comfortable in your own style. And then I do need to wrap up. You've got to get comfortable in your own style. So any kind of last minute things as we wrap up?
All right. So I think the last question is marketing yourself versus relationship building. What is the number, like what is one advice that you would have to agents?
Well, obviously we need to market ourselves, but remember, market yourself to get a direct response, to get an appointment, to get a phone conversation, to create some kind of engagement, right? And so I would encourage everything. My last parting thought would be, everything you do, will it create an engagement? Will it create a conversation, an appointment, an opportunity to talk to someone like we are here? If it doesn't, I wouldn't do it.
I think that's a great insight. So thank you so much, Mark, for all these insights. I think I've learned a lot, and I hope our audience also learned a lot. We will be back in 2 weeks with another success series. And thank you so much, Mark, for all your insights. And if you're in Texas, go say hi to Mark and their team. They're doing amazing, and they're growing super fast. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.